thing about distance running or participator sport or marathons is it's everybody on the start line has a story to tell. It's all about, and can you imagine, to me, life is about stories, and we'll discuss that a little deeper into the presentation. But life is about stories. So if you have a conveyor belt that gives you 50,000 stories a race, you know, you're talking about, for us, 250,000 stories to 275,000 stories in a year, out of which, believe me, 10,000 stories can be made into movies. So it's quite a magical thing. Now let's see about building an IP. Now I'm looking at it from a little more deeper sense of a sporting IP, of trying to seed, sport, create. It's a little different lens that we need to sort of take into cognizance. So while building an IP, when we are actually nurturing it and putting it together, I truly believe this. I think this is one of the most important ways to approach building an IP. Always think big. Thinking big is not arrogance, it is architecture. Thinking small is our limitation, and I mean that. And to think that, oh, how can I do something so big? How do I shut down cities? How can I have 500,000 people touch a property? Hey, it's sound stuff. How do I work with 19 agencies of a city? It's sound stuff, but it's a myth. It can be done. You have to have, and you know, this is the difference between an organizer and a promoter. An organizer just organizes. A promoter is responsible for every nuance, whether it's the profitability, the experience, the amplification, sponsorships, brands, understanding, creating roadmaps. So there is a promoter, being a promoter is not for the faint-hearted, but hey, it brings so much of individuality, creates so much of a value, whether it's a sport, whether it's thing, and it's also very, very satisfying. So don't think big. You know, what do we do when they say, what do you do for an IP? How do we, what is the way, how do you treat an IP? How do you think of an IP? It's the same as delivering babies. No different. It requires all of this. It requires love, it requires patience, guidance, attention, investment, all these things that a baby requires. And why not? It's giving birth to a baby, to an IP, is just physiologically different, not emotionally and not in actual fact. This is something I've realized and experienced, and when I say experience in terms of, thank God not us, but when I say experience, I truly mean, there are so many times a promoter is tugged and pulled at so many different levels, but always stay true to your belief and vision. It's true. Don't compromise the big picture because you feel there are insurmountable hurdles. Or there's a lack of monies. Do not ever, that's not an excuse. You've got to build more into that. Think more how I can achieve that rather than cut back. It's vital. And you'll have a lot of people, a lot of naysayers who will say, no, this, that, because when you want to create change, because if it didn't exist, everybody turned around and said, nobody runs. Who knows about running? It's a small little example. I'm going to bring it back because participative sport taught me a lot. Taught me what the different that comes to the table. So everybody would say when I was when I used to pitch for sponsorship, what are you pitching for? You want, in those days in 2004, when the first Standard Chartered Mumbai Marathon was something we planned to do, because I believe that every great city needs a marathon. It sort of truly is the greatest showcase of that to the world. It's the greatest showcase of that city to the world. We built it on principles, but So if I would go and say, hey, I'm looking for 4.5 crores, in those days, in 2004, for a running event, my sponsors would think I'm smoking something. And that's a fact. That's how they would react to me. And they said, well, do you know any of the famous athletes? Who won the London Marathon? And to me, it was just, it wasn't about who won London Marathon. It's participative sport. We're not discussing a 100-meter final. Of course, there are professionals, but it carries a city. You can create, it's a greater showcase. It's great for Indian athletics. It's great for pride and prestige of a city, whether it's social harmony. There's so many different value systems that you can truly kick in. And that's what makes a city strong, philanthropy. So pay attention to the snasias, cull the bits that you need to address. It's not just plain sailing. And it'll help you be better prepared, but don't give in to them. Listen to them. Take what you know. And remember, stay the course. If you rarely get a second chance. It's rarely that one gets a second chance, so stay the course. To me, when I say sponsorship and ROI is a double-edged sword, it's very interesting. Very often I've heard people tell sponsors, or sponsors ask, what is my ROI? And I'm talking specifically in sport. It's very important that you understand the difference between sport and entertainment. It's not advertising. It's not, so what is ROI? Now, how do you create ROI for a brand if you don't understand what the brand is going to invest? Because I cannot I can create a platform that can deliver ROI many more times than your investment over and above the sponsorship. Many more times. Today brands, in India, it's not known, but across the world, you can have brands that spend anywhere from twice the sponsorship up to 5 times the sponsorship. Just take Olympics, for example. You're paying $40 million as a partner. Are you allowed your advertising in the stadium? Are you there? No, you're not. You use that platform does it work? Of course it does. Because it's the values that we are promoting. It's what the brands need. So be careful. This is a double-edged sword. Do you have to create ROI? Do you have to deliver it? Of course. But it needs to be completely thought through, curated. You need to understand so many various sides of the brand. You need to understand the investment. It's not about saying, hey, I'll give you 2 30-second ads on television, or I'll give you a sort of a certain amount of exposure on print, digital, or whatever. It's about how can I truly seep. Because remember one thing, sponsorship and advertising are very different. Advertising is the right to choose. Sponsorship is to ensure you are the choice. Never forget that. It's not about it's not a branding exercise. And I'll speak about that a little more in the thing. But in part, an ROI, if you look at participator sport, it's important to know another set of ROI kicks in. Apart from what we know as ROI regularly, another set kicks in. And today we actually, with SMG YouGov, the ex-SMG, which is now, I think it's called GSIQ, an agency that does brand mapping and valuation, we actually truly created a system by which you can additional ROI in participator sport delivered through human transformation, delivered through emotional equity, purpose alignment, brand love, stories that define and change culture. It's a whole set of ROI that kicks in. So when you put those together, it's sometimes it is up to half more times the ROI, sometimes it's almost double. Now, as I was saying, sponsorship is not advertising. Very, very different. And I just explained that to you. Sponsorship is about opening creative pathways. It's not ticking off checklists. Will I get this? Will I get that? It has no meaning. If you take Red Bull as an example, Red Bull will do so many. Red Bull never asks you. I just did a major deal with Red Bull. They've just come on as a big, first time in this country, they've come on really into the world of, at first time anywhere in the world, I'm sorry. Apart from a small peripheral engagements, Red Bull for the first time entered participator sport, which is distance running. First time. And with all our events, today we are privileged to own 5 of the world's leading events. The number one 10K, which is the TCS World 10K. In Bengaluru. The number one half marathon, your own Vedanta Delhi half marathon. We just finished it last month. It was magnificent. It was completely sold out, 40,000 people from all over the world. Carl Lewis was our brand ambassador. It's a great story. We have the Tata Steel Kolkata 25K, again the number one 25K in the world. And you're talking about 30, 40, 50,000 events in each of these categories. Things like half marathon and marathon, maybe 200,000 events. So to be right at the pinnacle, right at that pinnacle is fantastic for this nation and fantastic. We should all sort of so proud that we should be. So it's important that we understand that, and then of course you have the Tata Mumbai Marathon, which is the 6th largest marathon in the world. So everything is possible in that sense. So brand sponsorship is a platform. It's not about this is what it. The brands have to work at it. Promoters have to work at brand cycles and brand speed. It changes. How do I think? What does the consumer need? What is the brand going through? So it's not a transaction, it's a platform. Create that is vital. For visibility, a sponsor would do advertising. For experiences, to get closer to his community, to his consumer, they do sponsorship. It's very different. It's for you, you have to be the choice of that community. If you don't achieve that, it's a failed sponsorship. I always tell my brands, look, if you're going to be, it's not a branding exercise, gentlemen. If you think it's a branding, that I need so much of my banners, so much of my hoarding, so much of my space, it's not that. That's advertising. Just branding doesn't help. How do you engage? What does it mean? Do you walk the talk? What does that community want? Are you as a brand walking the talk? What do you do for me as being a part of your community? And how do you also how can I touch and feel the brand? Are you real? How do I sort of experience you in true form? And finally, how can I own a piece of that sport, of that community which I can build on test of time. So these are very important segments for a sponsor. And we as promoters need to understand that without these 4 principles of sponsorship, you'll find it very difficult to justify. With each of our partners and brands, we say, what do you want to achieve? If I can't map it, how do I want to get there? What do I need to do? You don't decide. It's got nothing to do with advertising. It's nothing to do with a few columns here or a few columns or a few ads here or there. Sponsorship is a long game. But as I said, sponsorship is not branding. Sponsorship is belonging. Don't ever forget that. It's it's a small thing, but it feels like, hey. And I've known many sponsors, I can't see myself. It's not that logo. It's what does that logo mean? So, when you as a promoter go to pitch for a sponsorship, you have to know your product. What is the value? The sponsor is not going to the sponsor is not the one who's going to give you value if you don't demand it or command it or actually it is. You have to know every nuance. You have to have unshakable belief, deep knowledge of its relevance today, but more importantly, a pathway as to what it will be tomorrow. It is vital for us to understand this. It's not about today's sponsorships, it's about tomorrow. How we start today and how do we carve for tomorrow. And remember, I've always known this. The authenticity of your pitch, okay, or the lack of it, will either expose you or it will be a winner. So and specifically in sport, authenticity is vital in sport, because sport requires, sport is not hosting an evening or a dinner. Seeding sport, building on sport, creating sporting touch points are way more than that. So, impossible to fake, and if you try to be unauthentic, it will be sensed within seconds. Don't ever think you'll get away with that. Now, it's not about you. What have you thought about for the brand? Have you understood the brand's business? Are you really understood it to a sense of when you're mapping it to your property? Do you understand its current challenges? We all understand its target audience, but remember, within target audiences, there are target audiences which are sometimes a smaller section can give much more than a larger section. Their growth markets, their competitive landscapes, brand positioning. And remember, brand positioning can change often in cycles. It can. It's not only one brand speaks, sometimes have a different need. But the point I'm trying to make is, this is something you need to know, because you are creating a story for tomorrow, not a story for today. So if you don't understand this, how will you juggle, jig, curate, chop, edit to make sure that this remains relevant? It's not difficult. If we partnered you, every sponsorship works. Remember, sponsorships do not fail unless there's a scandal attached to it. Sponsorships may move the needle by 1% or may move it by 500%. It can create that kind of impact on your brand or on the property. But the thing is, it helps. So there is never a negative or never something that there is no one good side to look at, even if the brand does nothing behind it. It's fascinating. If the brand does nothing behind it, it still delivers, because it delivers as an ecosystem. So, and that's what it is. Present the ecosystem, not the event. Tomorrow is not about what happens in this event tomorrow or in that stadium tomorrow or in that race tomorrow. It's about how have you grown the community, its engagement. Has media, is there so much more you've delivered on that has so much more opportunity of amplification or stickiness? Digital content, on-grounding. The most important thing is experiences. Sport, entertainment, it's experience. If you do not have a good experience, I don't care it's not going to last too long. So very important, CSR. And, I'll give you a small little thing. And I'll bring it up here because it's not, sometimes people say, I say, if I use the word often, if relevant, you don't need to. But here is a small little insight I'll give you. When we started, and this might actually surprise many of you, and many of you might know. Just understand this. Procam International, when it launched the Standard Chartered Mumbai, the now Tata Mumbai Marathon in 2004, we built it on 5 pillars. One of them was philanthropy. And we said, let's do this so we can truly redefine philanthropy. And why do I say the word redefine? It's not about giving. Philanthropy in those days would cost you about 40 to 50% of what the donor gave or what you raised. whether you hosted a Sangeet night, whether you hosted a dinner, whether you spent this, you brought some acts, it would cost you anywhere between 35 to 40 to 50% of what you raised. Today, and we'll take the credit as Procam, today charity costs no more than 3%. And you know what? That CSR, if relevant, bloody relevant. Because we have raised on a platform called Running, through our 4, soon to be 5 major world properties, we have raised close to 650 crores. And that's true. And I mean it. I think I would love a clap. I mean, I think it's fascinating. 650 crores and counting. Today, Procam, including things like free meals and many others, those kind of things, cash and otherwise, is raising 120 crores a year in charity. And that's what it is. So is it something that we were prime ministers or ministers who put this in and forced people? And not only is it 650 crores, 1,500 NGOs in time benefiting, but you can feel that change. You can see it. It's physical. And not only that, I can tell you in which brick your 10 rupees or 100 rupees lies when you gave it to me in 2004. It's so transparent. It's done through a charity gateway like Give India, United Way. So it's niyat. It's intent. I keep saying this. Can you believe that story? And not, as I said, it's not only 650 crores. Every year we are doing more. And now with the advent of the World 15K, you can get to about 150 crores a year. So, doable. Think big. Oh, how will I give 700 crores in a running event? I can barely scrape my monies for sponsorship. You can. So, today, the greatest public-private partnership is something which I'm so proud of my company and us. 19 agencies, we shut cities down. And when I say shut, I mean shut cities down. I'm sure you guys have experienced it on race day. 19 agencies work seamlessly with us. Does it require monies to be paid or bribes to be given or palms to be greased? No. It requires to create a sense of ownership. If you can create a sense of ownership, you can achieve it. You don't have to do. It's their pride. They are so proud. And they work seamlessly with us. So, data and future scalability. I mean, when I say future scalability, the only way you can achieve it if you know and you built it on pillars. Like, as I said, our pillars, health and fitness, pride and prestige, communal harmony, benefit to Indian athletes, and philanthropy. We built it on pillars. So every time we tried to do better, we put it in one of these pillars. And the result is for all of us. India, I repeat this, India, having 4 of the world's #1 races, and 5th is a world top 10. And we have only started 20 years ago. So, doable. Today, before I'd like to put one more point. Just small little things. Today, there are 1,100 timed events. Unfortunately, it was 1,700 pre-pandemic, but today there are a lot of people had to close down. And I understand we're trying to do our best to reinvigorate them. But 1,100 timed running events. Do you know what the industry of running is today in India? Annually, $450 million. And growing through Red Seer report at 20% a year. 20% a year. Now, I don't believe that we are raising 90 million, it's growing by $90 million per year. But hey, even if it is 10, it's phenomenal. Who's the number one citizen from which country that travel worldwide for races? #1 nation, India. When we started the first Tata Mumbai Marathon and at that time the Airtel and now the Vedanta Delhi Half Marathon, at the feature race, which is the distance race, 2% of women participation, 2%. Today, 37%. That's phenomenal. Phenomenal. So, all of it is possible, but you have to build it pillar by pillar and with pure niyat. I'll keep saying this word intent. Believe me, everything comes around it, and everything is sort of that. This to me is my favorite line. Life is about stories. So tell stories. You've got to tell stories. I love hearing, and we do it. We watch movies, we read, it's stories. That's inspirational. They inspire. And I remember, and Rohil will tell you that, it's a fact, and there's a very funny thing that Rohil and me share sometimes, in a laugh on the side. He invited me, and I know I'm not very good technologically or digitally. For me, life is touch and feel. I love to touch and feel. I can't stand people writing, will you have, to the next cabin, will you have lunch with me, I think you need to touch, you need to feel, you need to engage. But Rohil invited me to speak at a tech conference, and I remember sitting on this panel, they were talking about how technology is truly, but the reason I bring up, because a very funny story. I sit, you must know, if you can't engage somebody in 7 seconds or 9 seconds, you've lost him. If you can't, and to me, when somebody says that, which stories, if you don't want to hear a story, just what is this 7, 9 seconds? If you want to hear my story, I'll tell you a story. It cannot grip you. You can't be we can't be slaves to, we have to be able to hold our own. Very important. So, I remember telling the panelists, 7 seconds, I don't want to tell you my story. It's not relevant. You're not relevant to me. If that's what your appetite is, how will you ever understand what can be done or not? Or what really happened? It's not an overview. Even overview takes longer. So, I'm going to leave you with a few simple yet critical learnings. And these are small little things along the way for sport, more related to sport. It's in fact all related to sport. If it ain't life, it ain't sport. Believe me, and understand that it is, because there is nothing like delayed sport. Once it's over, it doesn't matter how passionate you are. You'll see highlights. You'll see best shots. You'll see best points. You'll see the finishing, of course. But if it ain't live, it ain't sport. And if you're not going to push to, the most difficult sport to watch on TV is running. Who wants to watch 6 o'clock in the morning running, or 7 o'clock when we go live to about 110 nations around the world. So remember this, vital for sport. And as I told you about the successful partnerships, I won't bring it up again. There is another thing in terms of a misnomer that we truly sometimes get. When we hire people, when we talk to people, whatever, I love sport. But remember, the business of sport and the love of sport is diametrically opposite. I've had tons of people saying, sir, you don't understand how I love sport. We all love sport. We all love music. Can you sing, all of us? No. So it doesn't work like that. So be careful when you hire. The business of sport is very different. And if you can get both together, wow, we're lucky. What's a promoter's job? What is our job, your job? Any IP that we do, doesn't matter what it is to build bridges. How do we create? I remember an interesting discussion I was having with Sanjay Gupta, who now heads Google in Asia, and Uday Shankar at that time, and he was the head of Star, And we were talking about IPL. It was the first time IPL was coming, had been taken over by Star. And I remember a very interesting interaction that I had with Sanjay and Uday. And they said, look, what Sony did was, we want to be serious. We don't want this tamasha and this song, dance, nach, gana, barat, and women and this, extra innings kind of a thing. We're talking about sport. People are unhappy. And I said to Uday and Sanjay, and I said, Uday, ask me a question, I get it. But ask the question, tell me and give me an answer to this question. These same people who are saying, no, how can you do this? And how should we should change it now that, are they watching the match? Because if they are watching the match, we've achieved it. But now if you cut the rest out, there are many you're going to alienate. Many you're going to alienate. So, don't ever do that. A promoter's job, a sports promoter's job, it's got only one or two important, commandments, or two important criteria. At the moment there is fixing in sport, you are over. Promoter, television, rights holder, print media, anything, it's over. The moment there is fixing and you don't come on it hard and break the legs if that's what it needs. And the second, are they giving the best? If you can guarantee these two are never going to be violated, then remember that don't worry, it's our job. My job is to create bridges every goddamn street if I can. Every goddamn street if I can. Because I want you to travel the bridge. You want to travel because I've got somebody else doing something that excites me. I've got a singer doing one dance performance. I don't care what it is. I really don't care. Because when he gets off the bridge, it should be where you want him. You brought him in. I'll give you a phenomenal story on this. The whole worry was, who will run when we launched our marathon? When we launched the first Tata Mumbai Marathon in 2004, everybody said, who is going to run? Nobody runs. In fact, my pitch, when I used to present to a sponsor, it used to be an overview of Oval Maidan, with a guy sleeping on the bench, one guy in the and it overshot, so you can see there's nobody around. And the dog below the bench passed out. That was my opening slide. And everybody told me, how can you have it? You tried to get 4.5 crores into, this is what you want to tell him, this is what the state is. Yes, it is. This is sport. You can't force fit in sport. It's an eyesore. If I could give any gyan, which I could not map, or if I could not prove, it's nonsense. This is the halat. We need to change this. You have to have the balls to say that. It's vital. So, building bridges. So our job is to bring in as many, for whatever reason. So I was telling you this wonderful story. So in 2004, when we launched the first Mumbai Marathon, who would run? So for the first time, I can take the credit of saying we created what is called the Dream Run. Okay? The Dream Run. And of course, my brother Vivek and me went to begging to the Navy, to the Army, to the Air Force, to the Border Security Force, the Indian Air. I can remember, of course, we are the best athletes in the world. But that's, including women, that's only 40-50. The best in the world. Even Indian athletes hardly ran long distances. Look at what's happened today. But anyway, that's for another day. And so we created the Dream Run. And the Dream Run was a 6-kilometer jamboree. Have fun, wave your flag, shout slogans, get into the thing. It did 3 things for us. Today, not 90% would be wrong. Today, every dream runner, at almost every, and I'm saying this with quite a lot of confidence, runs long distance. You tell him, "Ab dream run bhagoge?" Don't insult me, boss. He's now a distance runner. You had to bring him in. If you had told him, "I'm doing this to make you run 42 kilometers," he would never show up. Never show up. Today, and the dream run is 22,000 people. I would urge you all to come and experience Mumbai, Delhi, whichever you can. Because for the first man who crosses the start line in the dream run, to the last man who crosses the start line is 1 hour, 10 minutes. Have you ever heard of that? And that's the energy they bring. But today, all of them are now distance runners who now have the pride where they, but if we hadn't done that, because sport needs a feeder system. It needs a feeder system. So that's the other thing. So our job is to bring in, and not only Today, can you imagine if I left the Tata Mumbai Marathon open for entries, I would get 5. We always, our servers crash irrespective. I would get 5 lakh entries. I don't even advertise. It's just one thing the chief minister would do or the governor would do. We open it, and we open it in stages because our servers can't take it. But who would imagine that? Today you have to qualify to enter the Tata Mumbai Marathon. Qualify. Can you imagine that day? But we are still literally we're just nascent in our journey. And I've also realized humans are inherently good souls. My journey has taught me that humans are genuinely, the haves and the have-nots always are there to think. But as long as you bring them in, again I see niyat and ownership. These two are when you want to get people into your fold, show them your intent and give them a sense of belonging. You'll rarely fail, rarely. So, and finally, I have a TED talk which says an extra step changes everything. And it truly does. It took me I must have hit about 40, if not 50 major brands just to talk about sports. But if you keep going, and if you keep going, here's the logic, here's my logic. If you can think it, if you believe it's valuable, if you believe it's worth it, somebody out there believes it too. Let's find them together. Thank you all, really nice being here.